this idea of repenting towards restoration and new life. So I'm going to move on to the next part of our talk here at 6:20. We talk about repent towards and turn to new life. Chris Hodge had talked about this restoration, or this repent towards restoration and new life. So today the technical aspects that we'll talk about will be about a project we worked on a number of years ago in Pittsfield, Massachusetts for the EPA and others. So I'll open up to a couple comments and then we'll move on to PCB contaminations on the Housatonic River in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. So.
Hey Dave, this is Stallman. How you doing this morning?
Doing great, Matt.
Yeah, all right, you can hear me. Man, that was a really good message this morning. I'm glad you recorded it, and I really like your background there. I think that's a neat Zoom background. Is that live? I think that is live, right? You're actually there in the Ranch Motel at Riverby.
Yeah, we're actually at Riverby.
One of my favorite spots, man. I'll be careful up there. Enjoy it. There's been some severe weather. So just be careful.
Yeah. Thank you, Matt. All right. Dear God, thank you very much for this time together. We know that as we seek truth, truth will set us free. We know that you will allow us to see truth and you will pursue us if we are humble enough to be pursued. Help us when we're struggling with freedom to be able to be courageous enough to ask the hard questions and not just say the mottos of this world. We're thankful and we love you. Amen. All right.
Amen.
Okay, guys. So this is a project I worked on years ago. I had was told by a close friend of mine, a guy named John Laurie, this would be a life-changing project. Well, I wouldn't say it's life-changing, but I'll share it with you guys now. It was a neat project, and transformational, I think is what we had said at the time. I remember passing on pictures of transformers at the company I used to work with to talk about different transformational projects. But in the Housatonic, on the banks of the Housatonic River in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, GE had a test facility for the PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls. Polychlorinated biphenyls were an amazing, I was going to say fluid, but I'm not exactly sure, plasma, I guess. I'm not exactly sure if they're always fluid or not, but they were this amazing goop. And what it did was it allowed you to transfer electricity at you could have a high voltage electricity that you could transfer, but it would be at a low amperage. And then you'd take it down into a municipality, run it through one of these transformer boxes, and would step it down into lower voltage but higher amperage. And the issue was that the amperage, when left unchecked, would be what would cause fires and would create a current or a force, if you will. A lot of times I think of amperage and voltage as related to kind of bank erosion potential and near bank shear stress. You know, it doesn't really matter if you have a high bank erosion potential if you have no near bank shear stress, and that near bank shear stress or that force behind the work being done is kind of what that amperage was. So PCBs saved a lot of fires. At that time there was fires from DC snap-on lights, and this was a huge innovation that helped save a lot of people. But not everything goes well. What happened is they didn't know what to do with these test PCBs. They didn't know what they were going to do to people. But you know, it was a period of time where everybody was growing quickly and we were trying new things. So they just threw all the waste in the river. And at one point, and in the 60s and 70s, they started realizing that, wow, there's a couple dairies downstream on the banks of the Housatonic River where these cows are grazing on the river sediments of the Housatonic River, and the populations associated with the milk that's being produced at the dairies are having a significantly lower life expectancy than other people in the general region. So they started realizing that, wow, PCBs must be going through the cows into the milk. They didn't notice the cows were dying any earlier, but the cows were hyperaccumulating PCBs in their milk. So then they were selling the PCB-laden milk to people, and then there was a higher rate of cancer and mortality related to these PCBs. So really sad situation. And there was a lot of documentaries that came out, and GE, who's still in charge of the facility, still trying to get cleaned up. And I put a link down there. Everything that I got is not confidential. It's all publicly available. There's a lot of confidential stuff related to the project, but everything's publicly available from online. What ended up happening then is that, they said, okay, well, you need to stop contaminating the river, and then stop contaminating the river and clean it up. And one of the things that hurts innovation most is when we just say things like, that's just the way we've always done it. And that's what GE said, is this is just the way we've always done it. So they kept on dumping because that's the way they've always done it, and they were resistant to change. And then now they've been spending the next, probably 50 years trying to clean up this river and find ways to clean it up after they kept on dumping after they were told there was something bad to do. So we went out there in 2009. So this isn't completely new, but I think it's kind of a relevant idea of how to look at things. And we looked at a section of the Housatonic River, and this is in western Massachusetts, right near the border of New York, and it flows into Connecticut. The Housatonic River is just south of Pittsfield, Massachusetts, and the GE plants. So we went out and we canoed it with the EPA, and we taught them how to do a banks assessment, of which we've talked about before on here, where we look at near bank shear stress, B-high, and we look at each bank, and we will look at a score for each bank. Now, our issue was we had about 10 miles of river that we wanted to assess, and nobody wanted to pay us to do a sheet for each individual bank when a lot of our banks are very small. Some of our banks average, I think our average bank length was under 100 foot in length, and we have 10 miles of river that we were assessing with the EPA. So obviously we have to find a way to get through this study pretty quickly. So the idea is we looked at the B-high, or the potential for bank erosion, and then we correlated that back to two bank erosion curves, one produced in North Carolina, another one produced in Colorado, and then we had a range of bank erosion rates from that. So the result of this was basically an idea of how many tons per foot per year do we expect on a river at different places along the river. So here, this is the river stationing that we had, and you see it's about 9 miles, I guess. Obviously we had one location where we had about 1.6 tons per foot per year of bank erosion. Well, that's going to be a hot spot. If we can look at that reach and try to do restoration to that reach to remediate it so that we're not exporting the sediments, and that's important. The issue here wasn't so much that they cared about the sediments, but they cared about what was sorbed to the sediments. So what they found out in looking at the state and transport of PCBs is that PCBs don't get dissolved in the water. They really sorb onto the sediments. And then as the sediments get up in the overbank areas, they get spread across the floodplain. As the pastures get overgrazed, some of the cows would just, you'd get a little bit of PCBs that would be taken up in the plants, but most of it was from cattle as things get overgrazed, and they just end up ingesting dirt as they're grazing the nubs of the grass and stuff. So as they're doing that, they're picking up PCBs and they're hyperaccumulating into their milk. So what our ideas are is that we took these areas and said, okay, these are the areas where we have the highest bank erosion. And then this is kind of the average bank erosion for the entire site. how about we overlay this with the contaminants? And they went on to detailed contaminant study of the sediments and said, okay, this is where we have hotspots of PCBs and this is where we didn't. And the idea is that we were able to look at it and say, okay, well, this bank is eroding and this is in a hotspot. So we think we're going to have this much fate in transport of PCBs from this bank as it erodes. Most of the sediment contamination was in the superficial layers of the floodplain, things that were kind of recent deposits in the last 50 years. And some of those deposits were, you know, a foot thick. Some of them were actually closer to 3 or 4 feet thick, but those were usually places that an old oxbow had filled in with sediment in a big storm. It wasn't that the whole river has been accumulating that much. So this allowed us to look at a strategic fate and transport of pollutants along the floodplain and said, okay, well, if we have this erosion occurring here and we have a high concentration rate, then we probably need to look at these areas first. So as we went to the bank erosion prediction, you know, our study banks, this is just a big zoomed out version of the entire 10 miles or 9 miles, and gives you detail of every color is a slightly different bank erosion rate. In some areas we're up against high terraces, other areas weren't. But it gave us a way of looking at mass loading and transport of sediments, as well as transport of sorbed materials on those sediments. So if we have PCB that was available, then the idea is it would transport if it's absorbed to the sediments in that bank. So in a lot of the river work that we have coming up, we've had a couple projects in the past where we've done things like this, but this is the only project where we've looked at a detailed investigation of this is the bank erosion rate, and we looked at it on a very detailed level. So even every bend may have 4 or 5 different bank characteristics associated with it, and then we overlaid the chemical composition of the superficial deposits onto that, so we get kind of a mass loading of PCBs that would be transported downstream. So I wanted to share that with you today, just as kind of a thought or comments. If anybody has anything else that they've kind of done related to this, let me know. Or if you have thoughts or concerns or something where you think that an idea like this could be relevant for a project, I guess we're kind of open for questions. No questions. So one of the things I think that we'll be looking at in the future when it comes to more of these fate and transport models is most erosion prediction curves don't look at individual bank parameters. They look at a reach as a whole. So they'll look at something and say, okay, well, what's the overall bank height? What's the overall bank angle? But what we see a lot of times is that your average bank heights and bank angles significantly under predict your bank erosion if you try to lump everything together. And that's seen with a lot of modeling phenomena where once you start to become a lumper and you start lumping all these different processes together, you realize that a lot of the impacts in fate transport modeling comes from those extreme events on one side or the other, and not usually from the average events. All right. Well, next week I'm looking at partitioning of sediment transport rates based on bank erosion predictions. So we had a project that we worked on years ago on the Kootenai River where we looked at your contribution of bank erosion for 52 miles of river on the Canadian border. And we tried to look at the bank erosion rates, and then we also did bed load transport and tried to correlate back what the contribution of different types of sediment transport rates were. There's 3 types of sediment transport rates: a wash load, suspended sediment load, and a bed material load. So next week we'll be trying to look at that. So it'll be kind of the same concept related to bank erosion prediction, but it's going to be trying to quantify it from a different means for a different solution. So. All right, well, we'll stay on the line for any thoughts or concerns, or if anybody has kind of scheduling or want help with anything. And then if not, I hope everybody has a great week this week.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks, Dave. You too.
See you guys.
You too, Dave.
Yep.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
Great week.
We could talk about that Strontia project. I was trying to pull information together for the report. I can't find a lot of it. So it's probably just something I need to schedule with Ken and maybe Bassett, see where they're at, or
Yeah, I think
where that stuff's at. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that would be best. I'm traveling this week, and I do have availability in the evenings to put a bunch together related to the report, but I haven't seen any. I know the data's there from the spreadsheets and stuff, but I haven't seen the figures yet. So I don't know if the figures have been created or not. So.
Yeah, I can't tell anything. I can't find anything, to be honest with you. Nothing's really filled out, and I can't find any tables. So at this point, I don't know how to proceed. I can't find a hill slope model at all in there for Buffalo Creek or the roads. I don't know if it just hasn't been addressed yet or done at all. I kind of feel like might need to rely on you to just run these models and do it so I can hit my finish line on Friday.
Yeah. Yeah, and
because I'm not seeing the information anywhere. So I don't know what your suggestion is on that.
Yeah, let's try to the set's on the line right now, but let's try to see where everybody's at today. And then from my standpoint, as long as I get started working on it on Thursday morning, we're going to be fine hitting the deadline and stuff for it. So I have time available and stuff. So I'm not too concerned about that, but I don't want to be redoing stuff that has been completed already. I know I talked to Ken on Saturday, and he was going to look over the stuff that Bassett was doing and then try to come up with a hill slope model based off of that. But I don't know what he got into this weekend, if he had a chance to look at it much or not. So I would schedule a call with those guys, and then also copy me on it. I may be out in the field during the day, but if I get the time, I can probably, especially for me, if it's not in the next 3 hours, then I can probably be back at my computer. So.
Okay.
So if it's
all right. Well, I'll convene with them, and hopefully I can find this information, because I'm not seeing it. I don't know if any of it's been done. I was starting to freak out because I can't fill out the report unless I can find the information. So
yeah, the bank erosion stuff should all be. That should definitely be there. I know that Bassett, you've been working on kind of trying to predict the hill slope stuff, and I know that you have some questions. And I don't know if Ken's got through any of that or not, but we'll
you mean that
get it taken care of, Crystal. We'll make sure it gets done this week. So.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll just keep chatting with you guys throughout the week, though, as I fill it out, because I need to have a tech edit on the report by next Tuesday. So I'll just be trying to pull in information and get with you guys as I can, because it wasn't as clear as I could, I couldn't just find a lot of it. The bank stuff I did find, but
yeah,
some of the other information, I'm like, okay, what's the total load from each category? I can't find it anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, and the folks at Power said, I went over some stuff again with him on Saturday, and he should have been able to run it. I told him I wanted to see 12 scenarios run, and it doesn't take long to run the scenarios, but I don't know if how busy he was or not, or if he got around to them or not. But really what I'm looking at from there is just a table with 12 different scenarios for transport to say, okay, well, this one's going to be an aggregation, degradation, and so forth, and what the total tonnage, so we can look at how that compares to the other reaches.
Okay, and what do you mean by scenarios? Is you just did different flow rates?
No. They're all based on the bankful flow rate. So it's not really based, because the bankful flow rate you normalize the flow duration curve based on the bankful flow rate. So they're all based on bankful. It just means that you look at cross sections between different reaches and how much sediment in proportion you'd be able to move in one cross section compared to another cross section. So it's the 12 scenarios are the reference versus 12 different cross sections.
Okay. All right.
And so that should be it. I would concentrate today until you talk to him on summarizing the bank stuff, because the bank stuff should be in a good place. I just don't know if there's been figures made yet. I don't know if he was relying on GIS to do that or not. So, and then we cut you off a couple minutes ago. You're going to answer about kind of where you're at with the hill slope stuff and the fans. And I'm sorry about that.
Oh, that's fine. I sent you the drawings, I think, end of the day on Friday.
Yeah.
Cross sections. I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at them.
Yeah, and I talked to Ken about that. I forwarded them to Ken so that Ken could take a look at them, just so that he was going to be working on it over the weekend and stuff. So I haven't taken a look at them because I was passed it back off to Ken. But if it's something where it needs to come back to me to take a look at it, I'll take a look at it and then give you direction here today. Let's try to get on the line around 9:30 or 9. Let's just do 9:45 Mountain Time, and then we'll kind of figure out where we're going to get this stuff cleaned up this week. So.
Okay. We have our staffing call, but we could just exit out of that. We'll jump over to.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, I was gonna skip them today just because I don't want to spend my whole day on the calls. Let's see what time.
No, I agree. This is more important. Let's get this done.
Well, let's just see what. I'll pull up what day is today. Today's the 26th, right? Yeah. There you go. Okay, so we have. Where's our break at? Is it 10:30? Is that right? Yeah, 10:30. So if you can send out an invite for 10:30, that will work. Just right after the ERE group's status call.
Okay, I will do. And then I'm just going to send you guys this email too. You can kind of ignore it, but we'll use it as an agenda for the 10:30 call.
Good.
So, okay. All right, thank you.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
See ya.
Okay,
Bye.
sounds good. Bye.
Hey, Gina, where are you at right now?
I am making a quick pit stop just south of McAllister, so I should be there in a couple of hours.
Hey, are you bringing your groceries with you, or will you have to go grocery shopping? We have Sarah who's working with us that probably won't eat all the dead meat that's in the freezer here. I didn't know if you were gonna go grocery shopping or not. So.
I'm bringing some groceries with me. She and I can coordinate. She can forage off some of mine, or I can take her in. We can do some shopping. Either way, I'm good.
Hey, that sounds fine. I figured you'd probably say that. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
So she doesn't have to starve. That sounds great.